So admitting guilt is not going to change anything, because the main reason that she's probably not out on bail is because she's a flight risk. I had 2, 3 bail hearings, and the prosecutor just kept saying that I was a flight risk because I was not a USA citizen. And she's not a UK citizen, she's Polish. So she constitutes the same flight risk the justice system sees to anyone who is not a UK citizen. So I don't think she's ever going to get bailed out, even if she has bail hearing after bail hearing after bail hearing, like Diddy. I think it's just wishful thinking to think that's going to happen. So let me read some of the comments. Joe, the fact that there is not a DNA test done or released immediately when she was detained. Exactly, Joe. Exactly. The police had her DNA when she was arrested in Bristol late last year. Why didn't they just announce whether there was a match or not and end this whole madness? Now, none of us here have ever encouraged Julia to have any communication with the McCanns whatsoever. And if Julia had ever brought that up, we would have told her not to. And what's going to happen now? Is she going to go to trial, serve some prison time, and get deported back to Poland, still not knowing who she is, still struggling mentally, and possibly contacting the McCanns again, and this happening over and over and over, so that it's not just costing us taxpayers hundreds of thousands, it goes into the millions. And sometimes I think they're not giving her the DNA test because this is how the justice system stays in business, folks. They have to create work for themselves. The justice system in America is now one of the biggest employers in the world. If you combine the courts and the prisons, one of the biggest employers in the world, and they have to constantly create work for themselves. And it's absolutely sickening that it's got to this when the DNA test could have been done just like that, David. Exactly, David. Well said. Well said. So, thanks, Paula. And when it comes to the McCanns as well, we've got to make sure there's no negative sentiment towards them. It's good that we're all sympathizing for Julia's struggle, but nobody exactly knows what happened to Madeleine McCann. I mean, when I had David Icke on years ago, he thought that she'd been snatched by a PDF ring. And then there's the theory of the lone person who snatched her. There's the theory of Christian. There's the theory of other people close to her being involved. There's just so many different theories, and none of us knows for sure what actually happened, no matter what people says. Wasn't it Tolstoy who said the highest flight of wisdom is to admit that we know nothing? And if that is the case, if we are operating from that premise, then if the McCanns have suffered the loss of the kid getting abducted, then they're just in a living hell every day as well. And we've got to approach this with compassion, not just for Julia, but for everybody involved. I know there's been a lot of people have done a lot of videos on various channels criticizing them and all kinds of stuff, but we've got to look at this is just a no-win situation for everyone, unless Maddie all of a sudden was Julia or was suddenly found. So what's Maz saying? Sean, do you think this new cash flow to Operation Grange is because of Julia? No. If they did the DNA test for Julia and they found out that Julia was, that 100,000 would end, wouldn't it? All the money to Grange would end because it would be solved. So it's a self-perpetuating industry, the Madeleine McCann case now, where there's just all kinds of legal and political entities involved, more parasites and vampires. It's in their interest that the case is never solved. Just like it's in the interest of vested interest to keep the war going in Ukraine, like the vested interest that Keir Starmer represents. then the vested interests set things in motion to keep these things going. So, Freedoms, please clarify if she entered a guilty plea today. All right, so I read the Sun news story. I will read another one and see if we can get a different account of what has happened today. Let's go with the Oxford Mail because that's the jurisdiction she's in. Maybe they got a few more details. And the title here is Women plead not guilty to stalking Madeleine McCann's family. A Polish national who has claimed to be Maddie has pled not guilty to stalking the missing girl's parents and siblings. Julia appeared in the dock at Leicester Crown Court on Tuesday today, accused of causing serious alarm or distress to the family between June 2022 and Feb 2025. The court previously heard Julia is accused of making calls and leaving voicemails and sending a letter and WhatsApp messages to Kate and Jerry and the kids. And it was on the kids. It was via Instagram. Oh, excuse me. Got the old local honey needed for the pollen. Karen of Cardiff, who's also alleged to have made calls, sent letters, and attended the home address of the McCanns, denied the charge of stalking. Julia from Poland claimed to be the missing girl on Instagram. We've covered that. So in court today, Julia spoke to confirm her name was Julia Wandel, according to the documents, and to enter a plea during the hearing. She's alleged to have attended the family home on May 2nd and December 7th last year, according to the previous court appearance. And she was arrested at Bristol Airport in Feb. God, I thought it was last year. Was it only Feb? All right. She was remanded back into custody by Judge Timothy Spencer KC to appear in court in August to decide if she will be granted bail. Right, so the first article in The Sun said the trial is in October, and this article in the Oxford Mail is giving slightly more details, is saying there's a bail hearing in August. That's interesting. So April, May, June, July, August, 4 more months. But she's been denied bail so many times. I don't see it happening because of her foreign status. Karen Sprague stood in the dock beside Julia, charged with 1 count of stalking causing serious alarm or distress. She was granted bail with conditions not to contact the McCanns and their kids and their family friends, not to enter, 2 family friends that is, not to enter Leicestershire unless attending court, and to live and sleep at her home address. Both women will appear at the same court for trial on October the 2nd. And Maddie's disappearance at the age of 3 in Portugal remains unsolved. And if anyone wants to communicate directly with Julia, if you want to write to her, the address is in the description box below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. And also, there's the link for emailing a prisoner. And I'm assuming that, well, you should be able to write to her from any country in the world. I'm assuming that the email a prisoner works if you're overseas as well. I don't know 100%. Maybe someone can tell me now. Let me see. What else people are saying in the chat? Ask Keir Starmer about the disappearance of Maddie. Yeah. The justice system, this is from Sarah, should force everyone else's DNA now just to end it for all of them. What if she is Maddie and they locked up their own daughter? Can you imagine, Sarah? Can you imagine? Wow. Katie, if I left my child and this hardened, my DNA would be there before even asking. Yeah, indeed. There are too many high profiles involved in the cover-up and are profiting. Exactly. It is an industry. The taxpayers' money goes to the government into a feeding trough. And all of the vested interests, whether they are military companies, whether they are big pharma, they are all trying to get the evil schnozzes into that feeding trough so they can lock some of that money down for themselves. They're licking their lips, slobbering. you know, budging each other out the way, buttering up the politicians via donations, political donations, lobbyists. It's all one big parasitic, incestuous money go round, absolutely obscene. And the government is doing everything they can to create problems so that they can give their cronies that money and not take care of the real concerns of the British people. Which is why we have got Paul Golding coming on, the leader of Britain First, at 9 p.m. today. You asked for me to interview more political leaders. We are doing it. Right, Mariana, it is reported the judge wasn't happy with McCann's wanting to be screened at the trial. They did not want to be present showing their faces. Interesting. I'll have to look for that report later on. Rocky Mountain, the whole wide system is so very broken. Those who truly need to be in jail are set free, and virtually no one is truly protecting the littles. They don't give a crap about the littles, Rocky Mountain. You would think protecting the littles would be the utmost importance to the justice system. But they don't give a crapola. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowing the industrial scale R-wording of teenage girls across the country by the gangs. The gangs, the survivors of which we have been interviewing. We had a very interesting panel the other week with Maggie Oliver and two of the survivors. Gemma was in tears. It's absolutely heartbreaking that the government doesn't give a crap about us. We are like cattle, just to be monetized, whether it's through the jab, and all the jab narrative is unraveling right now, whether it's through the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, like Keir Starmer cares about the people of Ukraine. Keeping the war going, they're just causing the death of more people in Ukraine. And they've frozen $250 billion in Russian assets. And the longer the war goes, the longer they get to keep the interest on that $250 billion in Russian assets. Keir Starmer and his cronies. Can you imagine how much money that is, the interest on $250 billion? And that's just one of the scams they're running with the war in Ukraine. It breaks my heart for the people of Ukraine that all these young men mostly have died in the meat grinder. And now France and the UK want to send our lads to die in the meat grinder. So Keir Starmer's cronies can count their pennies going clink, clink, clink as they rack up the interest on the $250 billion in frozen Russian assets. Absolute parasites. Yeah, would love to get some Ukrainian voices on the channel as well. Would love to get some debates going on that. You know, a lot of the people we interview have reached out to us, or they've been suggested to us on our YouTube streams. But my friend Andrew Gold just had Douglas Murray on his channel. He's pro Ukraine, and I am not anti-Ukraine. I am pro-peace, and my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. But just because we've had people on who have studied geopolitics for years and can see how there was a pretext for war by the Biden crime family, by the CIA, all the vested interests making money off this, a war that could have been shut down a few years ago, but Boris Johnson was told to tell Zelensky to keep it going. More blood sacrifice. It's disgusting what these parasites have done to Ukraine. So I am pro-Ukrainian people. I'm just against the psychopaths, including Zelensky and the oligarchs that are keeping this sham going at the expense of young people. It's always the young people who die for wars fought by the arguments of the most evil, wealthiest people in the world. What is war? It's theft. That's all it is, theft. And you've got Starmer and BlackRock's, selling off all the resources of Ukraine twice over. Starmer's tried to sell them to America, um, Starmer's bought them from Zelensky. Zelensky's tried to sell them to America. Round and round it goes. The incestuous money go round. It's all about money and theft. None of these people who are saying we've got to protect Ukraine, care about the Ukraine. They wouldn't start this war in the first place. It's disgusting. Exactly, Sarah. Keir Starmer only cares about filling his own pockets. Look at the state of him. Cattle is exactly as how they see us, says Stacey. Indeed, they do. They don't give a whit about the small people of Ukraine. If they had, they'd never have overthrown the sovereign government and began the task of creating a proxy army there to menace the Russians. Imagine if the Russians were putting bases and firing long-range missiles, helping the IRA fire long-range missiles into the UK. What would the UK do? So put yourself in the shoes of why this war came about. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we do love Julia and we support Julia and we have compassion for Julia and we have compassion for the McCanns with what they've been through. We do not condone the allegations against Julia, what she's allegedly done. We would all advise her against anything like that. And but she's just a girl who's struggling to find out her true identity, and it's really sad. Rocky Mountain, the war has been a giant cover over for the organ. Yo, my goodness, the human transportation and the organs. They're just even more diabolical threads to the way Ukraine has been monetized. We talk about the interest on the quarter trillion. They're all just little pieces of the jigsaw. There's so many different parts to the way Ukraine is being monetized by BlackRock and it's the banksters, really. These elite dynastic banking families that have got the big holdings in big pharma, big military, etc. Let's see what SA is saying. It's not about pro or anti. A lot of people don't understand how orchestrated a lot of wars are. Yeah, totally. Because, if we've got someone on here who's researched in geopolitics and they talk about how Russia was goaded into this and provoked into this, because you're not going to allow potential future threats setting up military bases on your border. America's got the Monroe Doctrine. They wouldn't do it. And because they got the Monroe Doctrine, they knew Russia wouldn't do it. And they knew if they forced it, this would happen to Ukraine. But because they didn't give a shit about the people of Ukraine, it was all about not just monetizing Ukraine, but trying to wear Russia down to get into Russia and steal all of Russia's resources too, which are multiple of Ukraine's resources. Supposedly, Trump's trying to do it the smart way by brokering deals with Putin to open up those resources. But the globalists, whose foreign policy, if you read Zbigniew Brzezinski or Kissinger, which I did because I wanted to familiarize myself with the enemy, and then Noam Chomsky on the other side of it, who's exposing American geopolitics. He says the Americans have divided the whole world up into this client states. A country is either a client state or they're not. And if they're not, they better watch out because they're probably damn well going to get overthrown. And America's going to come in and extract your resources, which is exactly what they're trying to do now with Iran. I mean, how insulting is it to see all these sanctimonious pricks going on the exact same news channels that told us Saddam Hussein has got weapons of mass destruction? All the same gaggle of lying psychos, manipulative media stiffs, having the same debates with the same fake, false authority, smugly saying that Iran now has got weapons of mass destruction. Come on now. It's been 20 years and they think we've forgotten. Oh, anyone can even watch that crap anymore. any the BBC, ITV, all these channels. Whenever they're in lockstep about anything major, look the other way, folks. Come to the independent media because they're up to something. So Kaz is saying Julia had 3 charges dropped, but still faces 1 charge. And I shall go to the Free Julia Wandelt Facebook page next to see if there are any more updates. And if you want to join that page, the link is in the description box. And also is the link to Julia's mailing address and how to email her. But remember, don't put anything else in the envelope other than the letter. And you got to write your return address on it. Otherwise, she won't get it. It'll be canned or returned. La Mini Manada de Paloma. Was there a peaceful protest outside? I don't know, but her supporters, it did say in the report, in the news today. It's all over the news today. Even when I went to the health food shop today to get some grapes, the lad, the young man in there, he said he'd seen Julia on the news channels today. Yeah, so, but they are generally the mainstream media, you know, they are phrasing it as if she's a crazy stalker. Nikki, could we look at the idea that she's not Polish and ended up in Poland because of human transportation? That is a possibility, Nikki. We cannot rule that out until we get to the bottom of this by having a DNA test, but it looks like it's never, ever going to be done. They're going to leave Julia perpetually wondering about who she is, which is not a good outcome. Because it's going to lead, I suspect, it's going to lead to more trouble down the road for her. You know, you cannot, if someone doesn't know who they are, it doesn't matter what the justice system does, they're never going to stop looking. They're not going to let it go because it's like your existence, isn't it? It's your identity. Let's see. Lady Roses, in my opinion, Julia isn't a flight risk. She just wants to continue a search for more of the truth on her real identity. If she has to wait till August, the charge should be dropped, as she be in about 6 months. I know they don't care. They don't care. The wheels of justice turn very slowly. When they came and got me for my ecstasy case, I was told that there was a thing called a speedy trial and a fair trial, and I was still on remand going into my 3rd year. Entering my 3rd year, I was still on remand, going court every month, never getting a chance to say anything, and the whole thing's a farce. Your lawyer puts on his theatre show, the state put on their theatre show. None of it's based in reality. It's all completely surreal, like a Kafka novel, The Trial. And your head's just spinning. And until you've been submerged in it, it's hard to completely understand the reality of it. So freedoms. In your experience, is it better to admit to your crime so as to receive leniency from the court? So my understanding is that in the UK, if you do strike a deal before going to trial, whereby you admit to your crimes, you do get some kind of discount on your sentence. So that's an emulation of the plea bargaining system in America. So in America, where I was housed in Arizona, 98% of the cases go to plea bargain, because if you go to trial, they are going to bloody well make an example out of you. They are going to give you the aggravated maximum sentence because it costs tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to go to trial. They don't want to spend that money on your ass, on my sorry ass. They want to scare the living daylights out of you, like used car salespeople. These prosecutors tell you you're facing hundreds of years. So when you are offered 9.5, which I got in the end, that's a relief when you think you're facing hundreds. Yeah, but if you go to trial in America, they'll make headline news out of you, give you a huge sentence. So everybody else in the jailhouse is going to be quaking in their boots, not wanting to roll the dice and go to trial. That's how it works. It's all a manipulation, folks. And the remand jails are just conveyor belts to the prison industrial complex. They just want to process as many people as fast as possible. The lawyers, the public pretenders, they've got like quotas They just want to get each case closed so they can get onto the next victim, the legal vampires. They don't know any real work. They just want you to sign a plea bargain. They don't want you to go to trial. They don't want to put that work in. So they are encouraging you to cut a deal as well, on the basis that you will receive leniency from the court, as we've got this question from Freedoms. I've got a video on my channel called What is a Plea Bargain?